What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Nebraska Cornhuskers post game. A little late this time. Last night was a little crazy. Didn't really have a way to do the post game last night. Tried to do it, couldn't get logged into my stuff. Signal was terrible. Wilson can attest. The signal downtown was horrible all day. So we tried to take the bus back here and get here for the post game. Couldn't get it figured out, but we're here for you nonetheless. So let's go ahead and just, as we know, we took out Colorado 20-10 last night, and what was a pretty much dominant performance for the entirety of the game. However, there was a little bit of a breakup in the rhythm in the second half. The officiating questionable at best. Wilson, you were out there too. What were your biggest takeaways, from the game?
First takeaway was Dante Dowdle, him establishing himself as running back one, at least for right now. He played great, 17 carries for 74 yards, averaged about 4.4 a carry. So I thought Dante Dowdle had a really good game, did everything we asked of him. We saw stiff arm, saw truck. He had a hurdle that came back because of a penalty, which we'll get to as the live stream progresses. But he played really well. And I thought Dylan Ryle, he played a little bit worse compared to his UTEP performance. Still graded out pretty good according to Pro Football Focus. Missed Jalen Lloyd on a touchdown pass, missed Fedoni. But other than that, he really settled in, really played well. I think he established himself as one of the best quarterbacks in America. And again, a lot of the eyes were on him. Everybody was tuning into that Colorado game. You saw that we got ranked today. Again, we'll get to that as the live stream progresses. But Raiola played well. We dominated the trenches. That was the number one key. And we exposed Colorado. They're frauds. We knew that going into it. And I'm happy that we were the ones to do it this year and nobody else. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, too, is one of the takeaways from this, what I find solace in is the fact that, this Colorado team, Shedeur, we may never play this Colorado team again, or we may never play Colorado again. But no matter what, Shedeur is going to go out, with a loss on his record to Nebraska. He's going to remember for that moment with 2 minutes left in the game where he's walking off, into the tunnel. Just a very bad look all around for Colorado. But, first things first, just diving into the atmosphere, because I was out there and this was the most electric atmosphere I have ever been a part of. And Wilson, you've been to probably more games than me just being out here. Was that the wildest game you have ever been to?
Yeah, I'd say that in Michigan 2021 were the two loudest. Both were pretty loud. I can't really remember the Michigan game too well. I tried to drown it out, obviously, with how that game ended. But I would say that Colorado by far was the most consistent loud crowd I've ever been to. So it was, again, every single time that Colorado had the ball in offense, it was loud. I've never seen a game like that in Memorial, even every single quarter. So the crowd was consistent. They didn't leave early. The student section was full throughout it. Of course, they tried to storm. So I'd say the atmosphere, at least before the game, after the game, I've never seen anything like it. As for just loud, that in Michigan 2021 and then Miami 2014 are my top three. But it was crazy. I mean, before the game was nuts. The trash talk between Colorado fans. I wasn't really partaking of that. I was pretty respectful to the Buffalo fans I saw, but I know some students were not that respectful. By the Union, they had a big party, and some Colorado fans took some heat. They were throwing drinks at them and stuff. So it was wild. But again, just the atmosphere was incredible. And Nebraska fans, they showed out, and the recruits are there. They saw all of that, and that's going to mean good things for us next offseason. And we're going to talk about that as well as the year progresses and next summer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Nothing but good feedback from the recruits. They got to go party in the locker room with the team and the coaching staff after the game. A lot of them echoing the same thing. This was the craziest atmosphere they've been a part of. Number 4 running back in the 26 class saying he's been to a lot of games, but this was, next level. He couldn't hear himself talk out there. So, it was not only an excellent dominant performance to play in front of them. They got to see the environment. They got to see the crowd and all of that. And that has to go a long way in a lot of these guys' eyes. Jackson Cantwell was out there. Michael Terry was out there. Cormani McLean was out there. They're all smiling, having fun. And so very good look going forward for this team. And just talking about, the early statement of the game, as we talked about before going into the game. And you mentioned Dante Dowdle. We'll get into that in a second because, me and you have been Emmett Johnson guys, but Dowdle's starting to show us something. Dowdle's showing us, I think, an element that I think where he can be better than I expected. I wasn't sure if he was ready yet to be a workhorse just because of the limited, carries over at Oregon. We didn't really get to see much of him, but he runs hard as hell. Broke Shiloh's, forearm when he was trying to make a tackle, running through guys. He just runs with a different type of physicality. The defensive line came out firing. Just in your eyes, how good can this Nebraska defense be, and how good do you think this Nebraska team can be? Because right now, I think, Illinois is going to be tough. Rutgers is going to be tough, right? And Ohio State's going to be real tough. But I honestly do believe that, this team can go into Columbus and actually potentially compete, just because when you have a good defense, you could be in any game. And they did, I think I saw the blitz percentage of Nebraska right now is 6.7% or something like that. One of the lowest in the country, but one of the better pressure rates, one of the better sack rates. What was your takeaways on this defensive line and how they manhandled Colorado for the entirety of the four quarters?
Yeah, I mean, talking about the defense, how good could we possibly be? I believe that we're already a top 10 defense in college football. As of right now, we're averaging only giving up 36 yards on the ground in our 2 games. That's 4th best in America. So this is an elite run-stopping defense. Not the exact same in the pass department. Obviously, we knew that was a little bit of a question mark. It's still very good. Again, forcing those turnovers. Tommy Hill graded out as our best player on defense yesterday, of course, with that pick 6. So I think this defense is already top 10. Now, to your other question, how good could we possibly be? I don't really want to get ahead of myself here. It's a small sample size. We've seen 2 games against inferior opponents, like UTEP, inferior opponent, Colorado. We like to say this is a big win. I do believe it's a big win, but they're not on the same level as we are. So, again, I don't really want to get ahead of ourselves, especially now that we're ranked. I think we're still going to have a tough game against Rutgers. We're still going to have a tough game against Illinois next week or the week after. We're still going to have a tough game, the back half of the year. So I don't want to get ahead of myself. I still think my prediction, 8 wins, is probably pretty accurate, 9 wins. But what we do know is that this defense is elite. This defensive line, man, oh my gosh, they showed out. I want to talk about Ty Robinson because I've been a little low on Ty Robinson in the past, at least last year, where I thought he was too big. A lot of his athletic traits that he had in high school, they were gone because he put on so much weight. He's been a different animal this year. This is the best we've ever seen by far of how he's played. Had a sack last night. He was all over the field. Had a sack for UTEP as well. Man, Ty Robinson's special. And then, of course, Nash had a good game like we were expecting. Jamari was awesome. Prince William Maniello for the second game in a row. When he gets on the field, he gets a sack. So really feel good about his D-line. The depth showed out. And then one extra guy, Keona Davis, in the back half of the game, got some reps, and he also played well. So this D-line is deep, and it's a top 5 unit in college football. And they just straight up dominated Shedeur. I actually didn't even think Shedeur played that bad besides that pick 6. But he didn't have any time in the pocket. That was the thing.
Yeah.
He couldn't possibly play well with how his O-line performed. So, that O-line for Colorado is terrible. We exposed them, and that's why we won 28-10.
100%. And I think the biggest thing, like as we saw, when Colorado got in a rhythm, had to just quick throws. It was just outlets. Like we're snapping the ball, we're throwing it outside, right? We're trying to get our playmakers going. That was the only plays they could run really, because the defensive line just was pinning their ears back the entire game. And shout out to Willis McGahee for getting in there. Get a freshman and getting in there and getting that fumble. That's big for his confidence as well. And just the depth at the defensive line, I think we finally showed what our defense can be. And even with, I honestly still believe that Colorado touchdown, there were a few calls that led to that Colorado touchdown that were bad. And then and one thing I do want to say, I do agree with you in terms of I think Illinois will be our first big test, right? Because Illinois is a team that matches our can match our physicality.
Illinois might be ranked when we play them. They were the number 1 team that got votes besides that wasn't ranked. So they're technically 26 right now. If they win next week, which they will, it's going to be a ranked on ranked matchup.
Yep. Brett McMurphy, I think, had them like ahead of Nebraska actually in his poll that he came out with. Very physical team, very well coached team, very good defensively, and that's going to be I think the best test so far for Dylan Raiola to get in there and he's going to take some shots. He's going to take some hits. Can he stand in the pocket? Can he take that punishment? Can he push forward? Because I think they got Altemeyer over there in Illinois. And, it's going to be a battle with them. It was a battle last year, but I think that team has taken a step just as Nebraska has taken a step this year. So I think you're right. I think Illinois will be the first test that really shows us, what this team can potentially be. Now, moving over to the offensive side of the ball, I really loved kind of in the first half. I thought the way they designed the plays and the way they kind of, they really built. You could tell they watched the film and they knew what Colorado was susceptible to on defense, right? And it was a lot of, they're very undisciplined with their eyes. So, even Nebraska loves to run a lot of wheel routes. So, they love to run wheel routes. So it was one of those things where we had a few of those guys that open, but it was more so a lot of just like route concepts that were very good. It was hard to see because I was lower, right? I'm like 8 rows up, so it's really hard to see the higher field view. I like to get the film, but I don't know where you were sitting from your vantage point. The offensive schematics, what did you see in terms of, kind of how they attack this Colorado defense?
Yeah, I was kind of in a similar place. I was only 8 rows up as well, but I got a good view of the field because I was in the north end zone. And I really thought specifically they used Ja'Cory Barney so well. He doesn't get too many snaps, but when he gets in the ball game, you see a little slip screen, you see a little jet sweep. They get their most elusive guy to football in that department. I will say, I think a lot of Marcus Satterfield's offense is predictable because he'll run the ball down your throat. Then first down and 10, if he's having success in the running game, play action right then and there. Like I called it a couple of times at the stand, but it's usually successful. The same thing. Iowa does the exact same thing. Wisconsin does the exact same thing. So Matt Rule's offense, it's not necessarily the most explosive offense you'll see or the most West Coast offense, but it does the job. Again, they get their playmakers the football, right? They'll get Ja'Cory Barney the football just to get him touches, to get him loose. Same thing with Jamal Banks. If they feel like Jamal Banks doesn't have a catch in the ball game, he's getting frustrated out there because, again, it takes a toll from a wide receiver if you're running routes all half, have a single touch. They'll get Jamal Banks a little, jet sweep. You just give him the football. So I really like that. Again, I thought the offense was efficient when it needed to be. I didn't love the play calling in the second half. I thought they went too conservative. Too conservative. I mean, they had an opportunity to shut the door, to completely slam the door shut. They didn't do so. It's all right, though. We got the victory because our defense stepped up.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that was the only thing that, because I talked about it in week 1 versus UTEP, right? Week 1 versus UTEP, I talked about Nebraska needs to learn how to finish ball games, right? And that doesn't start with just teams you dominate, right? Our teams you're in a close game with. Like Nebraska, we've lost close games because we can't finish the games. We can't finish the fourth quarter. But that starts with putting your foot on a team's throat like a UTEP, right? Like we did week 1, right? They got their touchdown, but we didn't allow anything after that. And even when we had it in hand, the defense still played their heart out. They still stopped them from scoring. They still were able to leave that game with the momentum. I think the same with you. Just if we have to take anything away that is negative from this, I would have loved to see us finish that game a little more because in the UTEP game, our scoring was really limited the second quarter. And the second half, was kind of and again, we started rotating a bunch of guys in the UTEP game, but the Colorado game, I just think we went a little too conservative. I think we should have tried some more things, just try some different concepts and maybe just try to run the score up them on a little bit because I feel like if there's anybody to run the Colorado. But also, how much do you think the flags kind of negated the rhythm? Because I do think that was a factor in this, that the flags that were, there was almost like 5 in a row at one point. And I don't know how we were ever expected to get into a rhythm when they were constantly like, I was yelling, we didn't pay to see you come to throw flags, right? Like it's one of those things like we're here to watch the game, let the guys play. How much do you think that affected the rhythm and affected his offense? Because the Ramiro Johnson play, I still don't know what happened in that play. I didn't think it was an egregious call. I didn't think it was a good call or anything like that. But I also was watching on the Jumbotron. Did you agree with that? I thought there was some targeting calls, of course, on Colorado that should have been confirmed that weren't. Like, what was your takeaway? Because even Matt Rule, it's bad when Matt Rule has to make a comment about it, right? Do you think that had an impact on the second half as well, on top of the conservative play calling? Because I really do.
Yeah, I do as well. But really, it was only for one or two drives. Like those first two drives of the second half, there were no penalties really that caused Nebraska to stutter out. I mean, they had 3 and out and another 3 and out. But really, in that fourth quarter, when we have that big drive, Ramir, of course, had the touchdown that was called back. Ja'Cory Barney had a big play that was called back. Yeah, I mean, there were some questionable calls. I also rewatching the game last night. Yeah, I mean, there were a couple penalties that Justin Evans got called a couple times that, yeah, he probably should have got called for that. Now, it's in a fourth quarter situation where we're blowing out Colorado. Should they call those? Probably not. But there were some execution issues. I'll agree that the refs were poor, but I'm also not going to give them the complete blame. Like we had some execution
100%.
issues, and even Matt Rule mentioned that a little bit. Like we need to clean things up. But yeah, I mean they sputtered out in the second half. It was kind of an anticlimactic way to end a really really fun game. I'm nervous about that because the same thing happened last year where the offense cannot find any traction. It's really easy to score in the first half when you have those first two drives scripted out. It's harder in the second half when the defense starts to make adjustments. Now, Deion Sanders said at halftime that he thought his defense was playing pretty well, and I was scoffing at that at the time.
Yeah.
But looking back on it, their defense did pretty well against Nebraska, all things
100%.
considered, especially, stopping that running attack in the second half. Like, we had nothing going. And I feel like, again, our offense is so depending on how we run the football. I don't think it should be that way when you have a 5-star quarterback. So Marcus Satterfield, there's still some questions around him. Again, the play calling was not great, but honestly, I'll give props to Colorado. I thought the run defense was improved from last year. And I even saw it sort of go to state. So, I mean, their defense, not that bad. But yeah, I mean, talking about the targeting penalties, Shiloh, I want to say it was the first quarter, second quarter. He had a targeting that should have been called. They didn't end up calling it. And then they go back and then they kick out Mekhi Bayer. He's going to be out the first half of next week's game.
Yeah.
That was egregious, and that should not have happened. But, yeah, there were some issues.
Yeah, that was horrible. I'm going to try to get some comments here. Let's see what the people are saying. That remind me where the Buffs fans at, not talking too much today.
Exactly.
It's been this polar opposite shift within the Buffs fans that now it's like, oh, how classy of you. It's like, okay, let's not go there. Right where those mouthy Buffs fans at, they ran away with their heads stuck between their legs. And I mean, honestly, I'm sorry, my voice is kind of shot still. So I'm struggling through this. But, that whole thing with Shedeur at the end, I really think this entire situation is really going to affect his draft stock at least a little bit because, he went in the post game and you probably saw that where he trashed his offensive line, right? Travis Hunter, I have all the respect in the world for Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter was limping off that field multiple times in that game, and he came back in and he battled. I have all the respect in the world for Travis Hunter. I have a lot of respect for Shedeur to a certain point, but as a leader, as a gamer, as a potential first round pick, you do not want your potential first round quarterback to be throwing his offensive line under the bus. That's not a leader. Walking off the field with 2 minutes to go. Are we putting too much into that, or do you agree? Because me personally, I think that's something like you have to see how these guys operate when stuff's not going well. And that's where you find out what kind of leader you have and what kind of player you're getting when you draft him, right? And what was your takeaway with how Shedeur handled this all?
Well, okay, I'm going to agree and disagree with you. So the first thing I'm going to disagree with the walking off part. Now, initially when I watched that, I was like, oh yeah, he's a punk. He's trying to get off the field early. He's not with the team. But looking back on it, he got a little bit banged up in that fourth quarter. But I think the main reason why he left early was Colorado was anticipating that they were going to storm the field. And if fans, specifically students, are storming the field, they're going straight to Shedeur Sanders. You don't want to be mixed up in that situation. So I get it. I get why he left early. I think he's for the team. But as for the second thing, the press conference, that was egregious. Not only did he throw the offensive line under the bus, but there was his pick six. He blamed the wide receiver, the true freshman wide receiver, for it instead of himself for that bad throw. But listen, I will admit, again, I thought Shedeur played okay given the circumstance, given how bad his offensive line performed. Yeah. But you just can't say that. You can't say that, at least not to the media. But I get it. He's frustrated. You got to hide that. You cannot throw your offensive line under the bus, despite how horrible they played. There are some character concerns. But as for walking off the field too early, I just think at the end of the day, he was a little banged up, and he did not want to run into fans, because if the fans got a hold of Shedeur, I don't know what would have happened. There would have been some altercation. there were a lot of drunk kids in that student section last night.
Yeah, there was.
Worst things worse, they would try to throw hands with Shedeur after everything that went on. And I think I'm just not buying too much stock into that. And even Travis Hunter, right when the game ended, he sprinted to the locker room. He did not shake hands with anybody. He sprinted because he knew that he wasn't going to do all that. So I just think that was kind of the mindset.
I think that was my thing. I was like, well, if they did that with Travis, why wouldn't they just run Shedeur off with Travis, right? But I guess Dion is his son. I guess he wants to take an extra precaution to make sure his son is okay, his quarterback is okay. I think the optics of it, kind of like you were saying, but hearing how he got roasted in the tunnel too, that was pretty sweet. But I do agree with you. There's probably that element to it. I just think maybe wait a little bit longer so it's not as bad of a look and people are arguing, it's 2 minutes left, right? Like if there's 30 seconds left, it's like, okay, well, he's getting off the field because of that, but yeah, I think the most egregious part was really that post-game press conference where, he needs to be a leader. He needs to step up and say like, I could have done things better too, but still be like, we as a team, we need to get better. There's a way to go about that for sure. But I do think part of this is, he really, his dad's been there, the whole time. He's got to learn how to really take these things on the chin. I think step up and be a leader. I just don't know if he has that leadership ability in him just yet. I just think there's a lot of leadership flaws he has. And as a leader, you take the brunt. I don't care what it is, who you feel did wrong, but you're the star of that team, right? To sit there and throw the guys in front of you, and the fire, that also ruins your relationship with your offensive line. And that's going to make things 10 times worse. So yeah. Moving over to the run back room, let's talk about that for a little bit. Rahmir looked excellent. Of course, Dante Dowdle looked excellent. Emmett Johnson, Gabe Irvin were kind of, didn't get a ton of actions in this game. What do you think that is with them? I'm trying to figure out like how Emmett has, kind of fallen by the wayside. I can't quite put my hand on it because Emmett's talented as can be.
I just think going back to Matt Rule's comments, he said throughout fall that he was going to kind of ride the hot hand in that running back room. So whoever has the best practice, he's going to go to him. I don't think this running back situation is over. We're going to see a very similar rotation to what we saw in the UTEP game where against Northern Iowa, we'll see all four get legit reps. But again, Dante Dowdle clearly playing the best in that room right now, along with Rahmir. I mean, I know a lot of people love to give Dante the credit, and I did as well. I put him as my offensive MVP, but Rahmir arguably played better, and they're two completely different running backs. Ramir's more of that pass pro. Great catch for that touchdown, but I mean, he was our receptions leader. I think he was also our yardage leader in the receiving game. So Rahmir played great, but at the end of the day, I think that they're basically the yin to each other's yang, and Emmett's going to get his opportunities, and there's going to be injuries in that running back room. So it's not over, but it is interesting. I go back to this. If you told us 3 weeks ago that Dante Dowdle or Rahmir are 2 stars, I would have said the opposite. I would have said Gabe and Emmett. So 100%. It's very fluid, but it's not over. Again, Dante's not confirmed to be the guy. They're both going to get all 4 of them are going to get opportunities versus Northern Iowa.
Yeah.
But I like how Dante's playing. I like how he's running.
Yeah.
I am concerned about the fumbling issue because that happened in the spring. That happened versus UTEP. In his second touchdown, he fumbled it right after he crossed the goal line. I don't know if you saw that. Like right when it was called a touchdown, he fumbled it immediately. There is a concern there. But besides that, he's playing really well. And Rahmir is just I think people forget how twitchy and athletic Rahmir is. I mean, he is so 100%. Fast. And even if he's had all those injuries, he's still got some legs to him. So really impressed with that running back room. But I am concerned about EJ and Gabe because I thought those two were going to be the guys, and I thought they did enough versus UTEP. Clearly they didn't. But I think Rules is saying, hey, whoever has the best practice that week, we're going to roll them out there because he trusts all 4.
And I think it's one of those things where it's like, it's okay. Like, we don't mind being wrong about this. If somebody else steps up and is better, like, perfectly, so be it, And Dowdle being as young as he is, Emmett being as young as he is, those guys are the guys of the future anyways. But, yeah, Rahmir has not lost his step. He looks just as explosive, just as quick. His first step's just as good as it was before that run. Him on that play down the sideline, even though it was called back, like, we saw what, vintage Rahmir Johnson there. Moving on the defensive side of the ball too, Tommy Hill, our guy, right? Tommy Hill, we've been talking about this whole time, had a great play there where Tommy, kind of almost baited that throw. He kind of was to the right, a little bit behind him, and it was happening right in front of me. It was great.
You saw
Um,
those wide
eh,
receiver just ball skills. I mean, I'm sure you saw the picture,
oh
basically
my
the
God,
adjustment he made to go up and get that.
going over
Man, a special talent. Like, I'm
without a
still,
doubt.
that was one of the best plays. I mean, just from a crowd reaction, because I was in that end zone. Unbelievable. Good job on the D line to basically force Shedeur into that pass. And yeah, Tommy had a great day. Again, our highest graded player on defense, I think, for 2 consecutive weeks. But now he legit talk about him being a first round draft pick. I think a lot of the
Without a
NFL
doubt.
scouts are really starting to listen in.
100%. That was the show for him. Like he's got. I mean, regardless of what anybody says, Travis Hunter's still probably the best player in college football. I
For
have to
sure.
say he's probably the best player in college football, and that was no easy task. And when talking about his matchup versus Travis Hunter, he was like, "Yeah, I got into his head, and he didn't want to talk no more after that, right?" And Travis was getting beat up. Their whole team was getting beat up. They were getting bullied. They're feeling it. I feel like they're probably feeling like they did after that Oregon game last year, where they just got beat up, and it was one of those. But
Micah Mazuka said the same thing, that like the D line for Colorado, they were talking at the start of the game, they were hype. Second half, they were not talking. They were dead silent. They don't believe that. That's the thing I go back to. They don't believe. Travis Hunter was visibly angry on the sideline. Like if Travis Hunter doesn't believe in Dion, at least in the back half of the year, they're going to crumble. So I honestly, I feel bad for Travis Hunter because he's such a freaking talent. Like
yeah,
he is one of the best college players I've seen in the last decade,
I'm
and he's
telling you,
wasting
I
his career in Colorado. He's
love watching him
wasting it
play.
away. I just feel
100%.
bad.
100%. Like when you watch him play, like you have to like the way he was battling, even on that touchdown drive, right? Like he's so slippery, he's slow, so hard to get down, right? Like it took a team effort just to get after him. If he was on a good team, just imagine what he can be. I think no doubt in my mind he should be the first overall pick next year. They're just asking way too much of him. And that's another reason why I feel bad for him, because I hope he doesn't get injured. I hope his body doesn't wear down, because Dion's he's trying to make this work for his son. Basically, I think a lot of us feel like to get his son drafted, and Travis Hunter's there. I don't know how much he cares about the health of Travis Hunter or anything like that. I don't want to leave that up to speculation, but I would feel terrible if Travis Hunter did get hurt, because he was the one guy who battled most in that game. Again, you probably saw it. Just how many times he limped over that sideline, got up slow, and he was frustrated over there. You could see it most of the game, especially in the second half. And he went up to Dion, of course, and was frustrated with him. So
I will say I do think that Dion cares a lot about Travis Hunter's health. He said like that he thinks Travis like basically one of his sons. I was talking to one guy who's been on my channel, who goes to Colorado, and he's works for their recruiting office. And Travis just doesn't even practice in the week. Like he only practices 1 or 2 days because they want to make sure he does not get injured. They don't hit him, they don't tackle him, they don't do anything.
Yeah.
So I think Dion cares about his health. I think it's basically a joint effort. He wants to get Shedeur and Travis drafted, and then he's going to dip. Then he's going to leave because he realized how screwed that roster is next year. I mean, we saw that quarterback play. Their backup, they're not in good hands.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Yeah, and I think most of us kind of, Paul Feinbaum came out and was like, "Oh, I don't think Dion's good." Well, everybody's been saying that since Dion basically got hired there, right? Like Dion's going to be there until his son's gone, and then use it for what it's worth and get out of there. I'll get into some of the comments here. We see what we go to. So our 2 transfer wide receivers need to learn how to block on those swing passes and outside run. They actually did terrible at it. I think they had moments where they did well, but I do think there was, but I don't think it was something I noticed too terribly much. I don't think it's something that like I came away from the game thinking as a negative. What are your thoughts on that?
I thought Nair blocked pretty well, but Jamal Banks, he had a tough day. I think his run blocking grade, according to Pro Football Focus, was in the 20s. Like that's horrendous. So he didn't really have a good day blocking, which is, I mean, if you look at the Wake Forest film, that's really shocking. But
100%,
it's not a big deal. I thought Janier Bonner really struggled blocking as well. So
Bonner did too. That was surprising to me.
Yeah, Bonner had a couple penalties as well. I mean, that
was
really
surprising.
I think on Ramir's big play, or there was another play, but Bonner had a holding penalty or block in the back that forced things to come back. So the wide receivers, honestly, I think they need to work on their blocking a little bit. I thought that wasn't going to be an issue with Banks specifically, but I agree with Dion. I completely agree.
Well, yeah, Nair, and I think that was more so my issue is like Janier Bonner, right? Like when I saw him coming on the field, I thought that was going to be a play where we're probably setting up to use him as a blocker, and then he comes out and immediately gets a penalty. was surprising to me because I saw Janiron Bonner as a guy, and it's one penalty, right? But Janiron Bonner's that guy. He was a fullback. He knows how to do the dirty work. He knows how to block. He has that big physical body. He knows how to use it. So, we need him to really be a key blocker on that edge. But I saw a couple times where Banks got beat up. But again, I think my attention was so scattered. I really need to go watch the game back. I haven't had a chance to go watch the game back. It's hard to really. I'm looking at we're looking at everything when they're out there. So, but yeah, I thought Nair had a good day. But yeah, I think Janiron Bonner was my biggest, gripe there. But again, I think Janiron's still kind of getting the flow of it, being in the wide receiver position a little bit different. So we'll see how that transpires. But
I think in general, the wide receiver room, the way they operate with who's on the field, it's pretty perplexing. Jalen Lloyd, in my opinion, is not getting enough snaps. Obviously, they may or may not redshirt Malachi Coleman. It's just the whole rotation is really interesting, and I also think partly I don't love the way our offense utilizes Jamal Banks. Like Jamal Banks is such a weapon. He hasn't taken over a game like we expected him to. It's very interesting. It's definitely, I'm not going to overreact just yet because small sample size, but he hasn't produced the way that I expected him to. And I don't think it's because he's been playing bad necessarily. I just think this pro style offense doesn't really utilize his talents like it did at Wake Forest. And more so, guys like Ja'Cory Barney, guys like Isaiah Nair, who are just shifty, fast, kind of slot guys, they have a better chance to succeed rather than a big time wide receiver X, who's not exactly the fastest in the world, but can go up and get jump balls.
And I thought this was the game where they should have used Jamal Banks the most. And I think that was my biggest thing with Banks is like, this was the game where they needed to just use his physicality against, these, they're softer secondary, right? Yeah. And I felt like he really could have had a dominant day. I don't know if it was necessarily like, they didn't want to take the risk of having him throw up jump ball. I don't know. Like you said, it's really questionable sometimes with how they're utilizing these players. Hopefully that starts to make a little bit more sense as we go along. Because UTEP, we saw a little glimpse of probably what we're going to be. Colorado, that game was basically over in the first half. So hopefully we get a little more clarity going forward. I don't think we're going to get it necessarily next week, but as we get into Big Ten play, I think that's where we're really going to start to see the guys really who are going to be the guys weed themselves out. And that's what we're going to see, is Banks going to be the guy? Is Nair going to be the guy? But like a running back, I think it's going to be similar, ride the hot hand. I think that's going to be the thing throughout the season. That is the perks of having 4 really good running backs. Never mind me. I appreciate your support in losing my voice. It's gotten better as the day's gone along. I woke up and I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do a stream today. So it has gotten better as the day's gone on. Get through some of these comments here. I think when Rule took that lead into halftime, he was content with just coming back and slowing it down on the clock if you have occasion punts. And that could also have something to do with the fact that, Colorado's offense is explosive. So you don't want to run the risk of letting them get some momentum, at the end of the day, and just make sure that you run as much clock as you can. But I still feel like we should have at some point put our foot on their throat and gone a little bit, at least in the fourth quarter or after they scored. I thought we should have come back and answered. I thought we should have attempted to come back and answer. I almost wanted to score on that last possession, instead of just letting it go. I almost wanted to just be like, let's just do this for the road, get out of here with a touchdown, and feel a lot better about this. Jason's like, no worries, man. No worries at all. This kid is wrecking that shark. My cousin in the background, JJ, he's throwing the shark around back there. We got he knows I'm doing the stream, so he was showing that for y'all back there. Shark therapy, that's what we'll call it. I love it. She's gonna go get something to climb up on, drop a flying elbow. Hey, I might as well tell him to go back there and drop a flying elbow if you're out in the background. Dante runs hard. He will truck you. Emmett is still young. But Dante, Dowdle, and Emmett, I think, are going to be an excellent 1-2 punch in the future. I think they can be probably the best 1-2 duo in the Big Ten at a certain point. Junior, senior year, the sky's the limit for these guys because they both do something well. I think Emmett's just kind of a better all around back, but Dowdell is showing that if he's going to be breaking guys' forearms that are trying to tackle him, he is a perfect running back for Big Ten play as well, right? That's that physical type of running back. And I was on Big Ten Ted's show earlier this week previewing the game, and I told him I thought there would be a chance that Dowdle would come in and really assert his physicality early, and I thought he would come in a little bit later. But yeah, just this, it's a good problem to have at running back. Absolutely. To be fair, Dante's fumble was a hard helmet on ball hit. I understand not playing repeat offenders. Yeah, I think we'd feel better.
Fumble. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we would feel better if it wasn't an issue in the spring and then into week one. And then also we saw a little moment of it in week two that didn't affect us, of course. I would count that almost fumble as a strike against Dante. It's 2-2 games, love his style. Exactly. I think that's the biggest thing but at the end of the day, he's such a good talent. Like, hopefully that they're working on this in practice. They trust, Dowd will clean it up. Clearly, like, I thought there was no way we'd come out and just put him in the doghouse from week one, kind of like they did with Anthony Grant last year, right? Like Anthony Grant had hate. It took a while for him to be able to come back and get back into the rotation, because once he fumbled a few times, he was really kind of, he's put in the doghouse.
I do think that was a different situation, with some stuff off the field even, right? Like when we heard about that.
I think he alluded to some of that in my conversation with him one-on-one. But I was curious to know, just because, like he said, the leash was going to be shorter. But I think it's one of those things where it's like, as long as Dowdell doesn't, do it multiple times a game, I think as long as they're going to give him an opportunity to clean it up. And it's just, it's up to him. I think at this point going forward, I do think that, I think he will clean it up. I don't think this is going to be a recurring issue with him. Hopefully not. Watching through his, high school film and stuff like that, it wasn't an issue from in high school. I feel like this is something. And now, as Matt Rule talked about this offseason, he knows really how to coach these guys. And Ron Brown showed him specifically, how to coach these guys harder in terms of the turnover margin, not fumbling and stuff like that. So our DBs are fine. So happy to see it. I would love to get Bly Hill back. I really want to see this team with Bly Hill. We got to have everybody where they need to be. Have you heard anything on Bly Hill's timetable? Because, we knew it was expected to be not very long into the season. I'm wondering. I
want to say he's back. I think I'm not sure if he was on the injury report this week. He's either questionable or he was fully active. He was suited up and ready to go.
He was suited up. Yeah.
I'm not sure. I can't remember if I saw him on the PFF report for getting snaps, but he was suited up. So I think he should be. He should be good to go for Northern Iowa. I hope he gets a lot of legit snaps, but I don't expect the starters to change. Like I think Marquise Buford's still going to start at corner. They're going to keep rolling with it, but Bly Hill probably it's interesting. They rarely rotate anybody in that secondary. Like the main five stay in the entire game. That hasn't really happened in the past. I don't think they trust their depth, but hopefully when Bly's completely healthy, they'll rotate him in.
Yeah, because I think there's a valuable asset to have with him with that length, and I think if he comes out, and they rotate him in, he comes out and shows himself. But he is a sophomore at the end of the day too, so if they want to just kind of work him in periodically and kind of see what we got with him and let him grow, I understand that. But it's one of those things where if he comes in and kills it just like anybody else, Matt Rowe's going to put him on the field. So let's see, Travis Hunter threw a fit several times during the game. Yeah, he was upset, but rightfully so. I feel like he had, I don't know, man. I feel like he had a legitimate gripe with a lot of the way, the game was going and stuff like that. But honestly, I just don't know how much the offense could have done differently, just because our D line was, getting into the backfield so frequently last night. I think they were at the mercy of whatever they could throw out there. But yeah, like I said, Travis Hunter did his part. I really don't have much negative to say. What is up with the targeting officials? Don't even know targeting is anymore. Also, why did I take the quarterback slide out of the game? The targeting, I think, was the weirdest thing, because they took a while on one review and then they were quick on another one that we thought should be an automatic targeting, but was called off. Were you on those targeting calls in general? Were you upset about those as well? There was one clear targeting where he should have been ejected. I know that one for sure. Do you agree with that one as well?
I thought the Shiloh one in the first half absolutely should have absolutely been gone. But my big thing is that as refs, they need to be consistent. Okay, if you're not going to call it on Shiloh, you shouldn't call it on Bayer later in the game. So they weren't consistent. That was the issue. Whether or not it was a targeting, I mean, it's up to interpretation. But they should have absolutely not called that on Bayer just by the way they were calling. But they got they were. I've never seen a fourth quarter where the game is so out of hand. Like, I mean, it wasn't necessarily out of hand, but everybody knew Nebraska was going to win, and they kept throwing flags. That usually doesn't happen. The refs are trying to go home at that point in time.
Absolutely.
But yeah, the refs are completely inconsistent. And again, we're lucky. We're lucky we weren't in a position of a close game, because then we would get a lot more mad about it.
Yeah, exactly.
But
I think
that can't happen again.
Yeah, I think it was one of those points we kind of wanted to see a lot more scoring, and they were really interfering with us being able to run the score up. So, and especially out there. But yeah, I just think the length that they took to kind of review those and stuff like that, it was just it was inconsistent. Like you said, they come out, confirm one immediately, but then there's a really close call, or they come out taking a while on one, but then there's one that's a close call, and they review it really quickly, and they say it's not targeting. I think that one was the biggest one. Let's continue to go through these comments here. Dion cares about Shedeur and Hunter. He doesn't care about the team. RJ Fraser, Dion's running a high school program, right? 3 kids, so they graduate on. I'm going to sleep like the dead tonight, 100%. I am, but I'm still on cloud 9. I don't know about you, but I'm still on cloud 9 after week. Texans won today too, so.
It's interesting. I left the stadium right when the clock hit 0 because I wanted to get back and do a live. But people were not as excited as I initially anticipated when I was leaving the stadium. A lot of it was a lot of old people trying to beat the traffic, but they're just walking out like they've been there a million times. I have not been there a million times. Like, this is the first time we've been 2-0 since 2016. I was in grade school back then, so I was pumped up. I was amped. I was basically skipping my way out of the stadium. Like, people were not as excited as they should have been, but I'm just trying to tell people, and I was telling people this last night, like, get used to this feeling, because this should be the norm going forward. This should be the norm. We should make, beat the teams we're supposed to beat our rivals in this fashion. I'm on cloud 9. I'm excited. I'm excited to play Northern Iowa. We're ranked. That is different. First time we've been ranked this decade. Now, why not? Let's talk about that. My initial, and I said this last night, I didn't really want to be ranked, because I'd rather hustle in silence. I'd rather, they can give us respect in a couple of weeks. But then I just go back to the fact, and what Rex Ryan, famous quote he had on Hard Knocks, where, it's best when the expectations are high, because it's always going to be that way, especially with Nebraska. Expectations are always going to be high, so might as well put them on right now and have us be ranked. So I'm excited about it. 23, I think that's perfectly fine. Let's just rise up the rankings. But what's your opinion on us being ranked, where we're ranked? I want to hear it.
I think the one thing that I do like about being ranked is it kind of gives us a measuring stick from, how far away we are, when you're kind of just receiving votes and all that. But now we got a number to climb up from. And I think this kind of gives us a measuring stick of where we're at compared to everybody else, and potentially we could go into, the Ohio State game, of course, 7-0. Like me, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves either, because Rutgers and Illinois look like really tough teams right now. So I don't think we can even get too far ahead of ourselves. I think saying we're 7-0, 6-0, 5-0 right now is getting ahead of ourselves too. Illinois is going to be the real test, but I do like to see, I like that we're ranked. Of course, it feels good to have a number, but I think it's more so just that measuring stick to see how far we have to climb, where we're at in the general thing. But I think with Nebraska, generally what we saw in the past is, we kind of get the benefit of the doubt a lot of times in these rankings, because of Nebraska. I think people want Nebraska to be back. And so I kind of see your point to an extent, where it's just like, kind of want to earn a little bit more, because we've had, in 2019, I think we climbed to 25 and then immediately lost. It's one of those things. It's felt like it's been like that. And it's almost, preseason rankings. I was like, do not rank us in any preseason rankings. I never want to be ranked in no preseason rankings anymore, because that always comes back to bite us. So it is good to see us getting respect, from national pundits. Brett McMurphy, like I said, he had us, I think 23, 24 as well. But I do want to see us come out and prove it. And I think, us beating a team that we were touchdown favorite over, really, we should have come in and crushed Colorado, which we did, right? And that's good to see Nebraska do something that they should have done. But I think to your point, let's see them in a close contested. I want to see one of these close contested battles where we have to battle in that fourth quarter. It's a one-score game in that fourth quarter. Come back and battle through that. And then I will say, I think this team really is there where they need to be. But like you said earlier, we're looking at USC, right? USC is looking way better than I think either of us anticipated, especially me. I thought USC was going to be good. I thought their defense would be okay. I didn't expect what USC is doing right now. So at the same time, some games on our schedule is getting a little bit harder as well.
One thing I want to mention, and you talked about these close games, like the kicking situation, because that is a huge issue. It proved itself again yesterday. And again, we
Albano,
haven't
man.
been in a close game yet, so we haven't had to worry about it. But
Yeah.
if let's say we play Illinois, it's a ranked on ranked matchup Friday night, must win game. Or Tristan Albano comes on, you need him to knock down a kick. Do we feel confident about that? Absolutely not. No matter where it is on the field, it could be a chip shot, inside the 10, and I still wouldn't feel comfortable with Tristan Albano going out there. So my take on the kicking situation is John Hull needs to start versus Northern Iowa because we've seen Tristan Albano. He had all of last year. He has had the first 2 games. We've seen the song and dance. It's time to give Hull an opportunity because he hasn't had it yet. That's my take. And maybe he's not the guy either, but we need to see it first because we've seen Albano. He's not good. And I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He struggled. It was a chip shot field goal. It was a 31-yarder. 31-yarder.
That was the one.
It wasn't close. It wasn't close. So we can't just keep messing around with this because we're going to be in close games sooner or later where we need to knock down a kick. I don't want to be in a situation where we don't trust Albano.
Yeah, and as soon as Albano missed that kick, Jacob Hull immediately went over to the net and started kicking over there, and because he was kicking it right in front of me. I agree. I have been, trying to give Albano the benefit of the doubt because I know how much talent he has, but eventually if he can't get it right here, right, if he can't figure it out, we don't have time to wait anymore, right? He's freshman season. Okay, we can give him a benefit of the doubt, maybe his freshman season, but now we're a team that wants to compete for potentially a dark horse playoff spot, as some people say. But even to win 8 games, we're going to need somebody who's going to come in and, like you said, in these, knock them out, drag out big games of the fourth quarter, be able to come in and get us some points because we're not always going to be able to score touchdowns. It's just we have a freshman quarterback at the end of the day. And as much as I love Raiola, I think pressure needs to be taken off of him for him to operate as a best, right? And that starts with, Buschini. Let's give all credit to Buschini, though. What a great game from him. Like, he had an excellent night punting. I don't remember what his average is. I can pull it up here, but it seemed like every punt, like he was just, it was perfect. He was hitting the ball on a spiral, was giving good hang time. He was putting it exactly where he wanted. So if I can look here at,
he had one of the 2 that was right in front of me. I mean, he took a beautiful bounce, and every single time he punted, the returner stepped back about 5-10 yards. So he had honestly the best performance of his career. Much needed. That needs to be consistent though. Needs to be the exact same throughout the year because again, he struggled last year. Struggled during fall. We gotta clean that up consistently. But that was a really good performance.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at the box score here just so I can see what kind of his numbers were overall. So let's see, defense, kick returns, punt returns. So punting, Buschini, 5 kicks for 254 yards with an average of 50.8. Right, that's the Buschini that we remember, right? And that in and of itself, right? How huge is that to be able to have a guy who can come in and potentially flip field position, put their backs against the wall. And we've seen what this defensive line can do when people's backs are against the wall, right? With this defensive line. And, that had to then play in what Shedeur was feeling in that end zone. He had to know that defensive line was coming, and that I think that also attributed to him, he's seeing ghosts back there, attributed to him throwing that ball over, and Tommy Hill just, of course, baited him, made a good play on it, like we said earlier. Bly Hill is being held back. The hammy repair itself. I do think that's one thing, too. I don't think there's any reason to rush him back if not. You're not needed. And like you said, if we can continue with this rotation that we have and give him more time, why not? Why not in that case? We need to keep getting 1% better every day. Better teams ahead on the schedule. Next week is scrub time, which is great. Illinois' pride of physical test. And I think with Northern Illinois, we need to come out the same way. I think we need to see them as a team that we need to come out. We need to beat convincingly, but we need to finish against, right? We can't come out and let them get a couple late touchdowns. Before we get into Big Ten play, we need to really be finishing these teams and be able to put our foot on their throat. That's something we haven't been able to do. And like I said, even in the blowout games, it starts there. Let's see. It was fun to crap on Burp. Dang, fella gets Team Huskers and Lions gets set this week. They're a legitimate threat, 100%. What's up, Cliff? It was a knee. Yeah, it was a knee. Wilson's pretty smoked too. Sleep well. You tired too, Wilson? By the way,
yeah, it's been a long weekend in general, man. But
100%.
Always time for Nebraska. You texted me about an hour ago. Said, "Hey, hop on my bet. Let's do it."
I appreciate
I'll talk Nebraska all day.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got to meet for the first time yesterday. Wilson, I
Absolutely.
posted a picture. He posted a picture. I look short as hell. Wilson's taller than all of you
Yeah.
expect. All right. I promise you I'm not
Yeah,
a midget.
I get that. I met a couple of people, and they're like, I was talking to them, and they're like, "Yeah, I did not expect you to be as tall as you were." So I guess my camera work does not do me justice, but yeah.
uh, looks like you might be celebrating at one of the Highway 6's great attractions. So I'm actually in Bellevue, at a lake here in Bellevue at my cousin's lake house. Beautiful, beautiful time out here. It's been fun. Um, yeah, we got back here late last night. Like I said, I had no signal down in downtown Lincoln, and we got back on the bus. I was trying to get on StreamYard, logged me out. I got back here. I was working on it till like late in the morning. I was trying to get y'all, but yeah, I am rested up, ready for this one. But yeah, when I get back to Texas or Arizona, I'm going to sleep very well. Glad that we're right now. Let the teams get used to it. Couldn't find a place at Fenway. All Sampits look alike to me. Listen, we know to be ranked yet. So a lot of differing opinions on that, which I 100% understand either way. I understand both ways on this. I am one of those people that just, I think a number next to the team name just looks good. I do
Exactly.
like that aspect of it, but there is that partially, there's that deep thing in our mind where if we get beat and immediately lose our ranking, they're going to be like, oh, Nebraska's a fraud again. As soon as we get ranked again, they're going to have the same thing. Let's see, Jason. Now Justin's got a nice lot, Sand Beach of town. Let's go be interested. Hey, no, weather's great out here. I would love it out here. I do not want to get back to Arizona. That's for sure. Arizona. I got a friend lives there 2 hours behind until November. Yeah, daylight savings. Arizona. We don't do daylight savings. So sometimes Central's 2 hours ahead, 1 hour ahead sometimes. So try to get a couple more of these comments. True, and our leader is Minnie. Recognize Nebraska sky anywhere. Yep, still Nebraska. Minnie and Greg up at 9 p.m. All right. So we got about 9 minutes here, and I know you're tired too. So just any closing, things to take away from this weekend. I guess stepping away and looking at the overall big picture of this. What do you think this says for Nebraska? Because, in one hand, again, Colorado was a team we should have beat. We went in there and beat. I think we should feel great about that. I think we should feel elated. That is a rivalry, and it was a good offense that we went and stopped. But to your point, I do think there is going to be much tougher tests very soon on our schedule that we need to see how we fare against first. But stepping back and looking at this weekend and how it went, what's your big takeaway over this for what we can, use to look forward to the rest of the season?
Well, first things first, it was nice to have positive media attention for the first time in a long time. We're in a prime time game, and we show up and we show out. I thought, of course, the fourth quarter light show when we went viral, Kirk Herbstreit was talking about it. That was good to have, because recruits see all of that. And I always look at things through a recruiting lens.
Hayes Fawcett.
Exactly. If you're going viral and people are talking about you, recruits are all seeing that not only 25, 26 classes, but, even down the line in class of 2030, right? That's going to stick in their brain. We had a really good recruiting weekend. I mean, a lot of good bits has been coming out about, just everybody was there. Michael Clayton got a crystal ball. That's a 4-star quarterback in the class of 2026. So
yes,
a lot of good recruiting news. That was the first thing. Second thing, we were healthy for the most part in this game. No injuries throughout the first 2 weeks. Elijah Judy went down briefly. I think he'll be okay. So that's always a concern for me is can you stay healthy, because the healthiest teams make it the farthest throughout the year, and they'll find themselves in the cultural playoff. So we're healthy. We need to continue to be that way. Just the third thing, again, just to beat Colorado, to have the last word. Again, I hope we play them again. I'm one of those guys who thinks that we should play Colorado every year, because as much as I hate them, I respect the rivalry, and I just want to have it every single year.
It's fun.
Even when we played Oklahoma in 2022, we got blown out. But I was a little bit mad because I wanted to play them again. I want to play them next year. So we are playing Oklahoma in the future. I want to say 2030 or something, but we don't have Colorado on the schedule going forward. I want to have it every year. Why not? Let's do it. It's better than playing Cincinnati next year in a neutral site game. I'll tell you that. So,
for sure.
I'd say Troy Dannon, let's get on that. Let's play Colorado every year. But it was fun to beat up, fun to get the last laugh for now, and fun to have all the Colorado fans that talk so poorly about Nebraska for the last year.
Man.
Where you been? Where you at, Colorado fans?
Man.
They're in hiding. They're in hiding, and they're not coming out. I think that when Deion's inevitably quits or fired or whatever happens there,
Yeah.
they're never going to be seen again. They're going to delete all their accounts. So it's been
Prime
fun, Colorado
fans
fans.
will be gone. But yeah, to your point, the only thing I'm afraid of with that is, the way this system's kind of going, where it's looking like we want to have a lot of, everybody wants to have a lot of conference games and schedule a couple cupcakes outside of that. But I really hope that we can continue, like you said, this was fun, right? And we need games like that. I think Sipple said it. I saw a little clip or somebody retweeted what Sipple said about, like, these games are good for, Nebraska. Like, if we're playing cupcakes all the time, we invite these recruits out, we're not going to be able to get an atmosphere like that, and it's nice to get out there and handle the team in front of these guys, and then, to be able to see what that atmosphere looks like in an environment we're winning. We go to the college game day against Ohio State when Justin Fields was there. Yeah, we had the environment there at the beginning, but then that was quickly shot down. I think that was the best consistent atmosphere that I've saw in a long time. And yeah, Hayes Fawcett posted about just how Lincoln's atmosphere was second to none. Pick Six previews, all of those guys were talking about it. Like you said, that recruits see that, especially the guys like Hayes Fawcett and those guys like that, because how big he is in recruiting. Wish he would have made that kick, would have been good for the confidence. Big nights, made field goals. For all the studs, the rule staff has gone out and gathered. How the hell we not have a friggin' kicker? We might have one. Let's see what we got in hole. Yeah, so they said I need to avoid your jab, Wilson. So
yeah,
don't be throwing no jabs at me. I'm 5'16". Okay. Big takeaway. Been a while since they've been a Nebraska team, that much emotion intensity. I think that's a big thing. Just seeing the confidence that this team has. I think that game right there just really cemented. Like, they came in there and they talked. They talked their talk and they proved it. They showed up, they showed out, waving to Colorado, and waved to Colorado as they went off the field. It was beautiful to see, and I think this team really believes in themselves, and I think we saw that in the lead up to this. Getting late, how do you feel about Coach Satt's play calling second half? We thought it was very, very conservative, overly conservative. We're really questioning that, and we need to see a change in that going forward. Absolutely, and this gave Satterfield the benefit of the doubt last year, but that's not going to get it done. Absolutely not. Jackson, Dion, let's add OK State and Kansas to that. Drank the Kool-Aid, Dylan Ravioli, and it's amazing.
Come on.
Still on Nebraska with smack Colorado and Terrell last night. I appreciate you, Jackson. Always supporting the Huskers, man. You the man. Happy boy. I'm a happy boy. Yeah, me too, Jason. I think we all are. Okay. That's the only reason I would read that out loud. Not ready for Texas, though, I don't think. Not in boat racing. Yeah. We don't have to worry about Texas just now. We'll let them do their thing. Let's let Raiola get some. Fans of Western Nebraska appreciate the occasional game at Wyoming and Colorado. All right. Well, we're about at our hour here. Wilson, thank you so much. Like, again, I hit you up last minute to join me on this. I appreciate you hopping in here and joining me. Appreciate meeting you last night, coming over, say what's up. Was a great time overall. I hope everybody in Husker Nation, had a great night. I hope we're all still on cloud nine from that game. We got to we got to get ready next week. Again, even though it's a cupcake, we got to go out there. We got to show ourselves. And then after that, we got a lot of, tough Big Ten play to come up. And so we should be excited, but I'll have some stuff coming for you this next week. Wilson will as well, about, what we can expect in the coming weeks. And I'll be able to step back and rewatch that game and really get some notes on that and tell, kind of how I feel and how that I think that sets us up for the coming few weeks. So, but Wilson, again, thank you so much for joining. Wilson, do you want to tell people where they can find you and what you got going on as well?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at Wilson Dittman, and same thing on Instagram at Wilson Dittman. But just look on YouTube, Wilson Dittman Sports, and I appreciate your support, man.
Absolutely. And I'm over on X at _H Husker. If you like what I'm doing here, drop a like, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you think. And I will see y'all when I'm back in Arizona. I'm flying back to Arizona tomorrow, so I'll try to get a video for y'all whenever I get there and land at Link and get my dogs and all that. So, but yeah, stay tuned for the next episode, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.